Hello and welcome everybody. It is Friday. It is Goldster Inside Story. And many of our wonderful audience will have heard much about Goldster's philosophy about healthy living. Now, today we are expanding our brief because much human happiness comes from the happy animals around us. And my guest today has a calling to tell the world how to have a healthier and happier pet. Now, we never know, I have to say this, it's really got nothing to do with the show, but we never know where we're going on Goldster Inside Story. Those who joined yesterday would have heard from Ethan Shoren, an expert in the Middle East and Libya, an advisor to governments, one of those important men who untangled all the headline news stuff for us. And at the end of the show, after listening to all this terribly confusing stuff, and after promoting today's Inside Story, I asked Ethan what his pets were. And it turned out he has a dog with heart trouble that he flew to Japan for a special operation that he couldn't get anywhere else, and that his next book is not going to be about serious things in the Middle East. It is going to be the story about saving his dog's life. So like I keep saying, the only stupid question is the one you never ask. Don't be afraid to ask, because today, if you have a dog with epilepsy, arthritis, any condition like that, our guest will tell you how to give it a full and happy life. She has written books on both and more in her work as a BBC broadcaster, an author and a journalist. So welcome, Jill Carrick, to Goldster Inside Story.
Thank you, and I'm delighted to be here.
It's so good to have you with us, and I'm going to tell a little story later on of how we nearly didn't have you. And in a moment, we're going to get into arthritis and epilepsy. And please, all of you, anybody with pets, join in our conversation in the chat. Ask Jill whatever you want, and she will do her damnedest to answer it, because that is our Goldster philosophy. Now, my first question to you, Jill, is something we discussed in our pre-show brief, and that is the concept of the inner cat. We all have an inner cat. So what exactly is one?
Well, it's a very clever route to take if you actually adopt your inner cat, because I think clearly we know they pretty much rule the digital world, and I think they also rule the practical world too. And I'm focusing on this book I'm writing at the moment, where the cat actually teaches his pet human how to live their lives. So, and I would suggest to everyone, if you really want to be successful in life and you're not averse to cats or allergic to them, maybe just develop the idea that they create their own brand, they know how to protect it, and they seem to have a wonderful time in all their 9 lives. So why not?
So give me an example, not your own, but give me an example of a human being using that inner cat.
Well, apart from adopting and playing in musicals, that famous cat with Andrew Lloyd Webber, because I think if you spend time with cats, most people end up getting affected by how cats view the world. So certainly my cat, which sadly has gone to cat heaven now, but I used to follow his example a bit, and they give you a brief on how to move forward, I think. And anyone I know who's got a cat, and there are quite a few, they I think they start mirroring each other. So I know so many examples. So I think obviously dogs can influence you as well, but cats just give you that look, and then you think, okay, I'll follow your lead.
But as you were talking there, I was working out what my inner cat was, and I think I might know. I'm going to ask our audience, what do you think Jill's inner cat might be? And she's going to tell us at the end. And if you have a concept or an idea of what your own inner cat is, let us know, and we'll put it into the mix of our conversation over the next hour. We already have a question in which I'm not going to come to now, Lilette Butler, because but we will come to it further down. But please join in this conversation. It's about pets, it's about love, it's about warmth, it's about our community here in Goldster. But we will now go to your book, My Dog Has Arthritis, but Lives Life to the Full. And now I discussed this with my co-host and dog lover, Lucinda, who happens to be in Galveston, Texas at the moment, talking at a Charles Dickens Literary Festival. But if Ben has it, she sent through a picture of Trilby, her dog. Now, Jill, tell us what is actually happening here, because her dog has arthritis.
Yes. Well, the whole idea with the approach to arthritis, I should stress, by the way, that I'm not actually a vet, but I worked very closely with the vets on my book. And with arthritis, and it applies to humans as well, in a way, that you have to take quite a holistic approach. It's not just medication, because that can have side effects. So there are lots of things you can do to actually control the symptoms, manage them quite effectively, and also de-stress the dog quite a lot, hopefully. So in this example, it's clear the dog's actually experiencing what we know probably more commonly over here as hydrotherapy. And the idea is that the water will support the joints, the dog will feel a bit more relaxed, and the warmth of the water will actually help the various muscles surrounding the joints. So that's the theory. And there are also, you can't see it in this photo, but I imagine there are some water treadmills as well. So that's quite good. So they get a lot of exercise. Usually a therapy session like this would last about 30 minutes, but it's very much dependent on how the dog responds, because not all dogs like it. So you can't just chuck them in the water and hope they'll just get on with it. So that's why they wear a sort of jacket like that, a sort of harness, so that they can be encouraged to enjoy it.
It looks like Trilby's enjoying it.
He does. I mean, he's not smiling. He looks like he's concentrating, and this is
yes,
I'm going to get the best out of this. And obviously he's got a very, very good human by his side. And so it looks like he certainly doesn't look distressed. He looks actually at ease. And
the human by his side, would that be an aquatherapist, a physiotherapist, a veterinary therapist?
Well, no, I mean, you can, there are certain treatments for arthritis as applied to pets where only vets can do it. Like acupuncture has to be done by a vet. But in this case, in my experience, the therapists I've met who do get involved in hydrotherapy are not vets, but they've trained properly, and they follow a code of, it's the welfare of the animal is very important. But as a general rule, the animals do benefit from it, and even cats get hydrotherapy.
Cats
but,
with arthritis.
Yes.
Let's go back to the two screens now so that we can concentrate on our topic, because the first book you wrote, I think, on this topic was about arthritis generally in humans. So just tell us what it is.
Yes, that one was, I was commissioned to do that in 2010. And it was because I'd had a arthritic reaction to an operation, and it was an inflammatory reaction. I think your blood changes when you have an operation anyway, and so I didn't react terribly well. And then I had a problem in one of my knees, torn cartilage, and so I just went for it. So I covered as many of the arthritic conditions, because there's something like 200 of them, which is more than I ever knew. But most people suffer from wear and tear effects, which lead
so the arthritis, is it am I correct in this? It's when the cartilage or some tissue goes, so the bones are rubbing against each other. Is that right?
Yes,
And that's what creates the pain.
Yes, and if they're out of sync, and if it's the muscles, ligaments, or tendons, all the rest of it, because they're running around over the joints, and then if they're torn or if they're stretched or there's some kind of injury. A lot of arthritis among sports people is down to injury.
Right. And how do you know if your dog has got arthritis? Because they can't tell you, can they?
They can't. Well, they can and they can't. They can hold up this paw and look very sad, and then, which some of them do, and it's like, this hurts, and they often start limping, or they might slow down when they're walking. They don't really want to do the absolute run around that they normally do. They'll be sort of lying on the floor a bit more. They don't jump up on the sofa, so that the signs are there always, if you're looking for them. And they'll not be themselves, and they will just walk in a different way. So, and if your dog is a little bit overweight, then that might be a bit obvious that they're suffering from arthritis. But,
and then it goes to the vet to diagnose it. Is
yes,
that right?
Yes. I mean, because the basis of the books I wrote were very much getting case studies and stories from the owners as well, because they're on the cold face. And animals better than anyone does, but it's important, obviously, to get the vet to diagnose if it's a case of an injury that they might be able to help. If there's something called hip dysplasia, where the joints are going out of sync, then there could be remedies for that. So the vet will be able to tell you if there's anything they can do medically or with treatment, or if it's a case of helping with complementary therapies or hydrotherapy, as we saw. So if you work in tandem with your vet, that's the best approach, I would say.
So I'm going to cut away, because Lilette Butler has asked this thing, and it's whether arthritis. Well, I'm going to ask if arthritis has got anything to do with diet, but she says, we have a new Cocker Spaniel puppy. What are the do's and don'ts for a healthy diet? Any tips? A healthy diet for a Cocker Spaniel puppy?
Oh, well, the Cocker Spaniel, unfortunately, I've never had the chance to live too much with a Cocker Spaniel, but again, I would probably take a bit of advice from the vet, because specific breeds might need specific sort of food. But as a general rule, not too much food. Make sure that they have enough to eat, but don't overfeed them, because it's very easy when they're in puppydom to actually get a lot of treats. So I'd cut down on the treats. I would, if you're happy to cook food for them,
okay.
Don't
as opposed to canned food. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it's so difficult now for owners, I think, because there are so many foods available. Vets can recommend some, other people say raw food, and that's a little bit tricky, I think. But if basically,
so when we as humans, when we're told, this goes for our medical checks, we're told no processed meat and food, cut down on the processed food, no alcohol. I'm not sure if that applies to pets, and that no alcohol, lots of greens and lots of exercise. Is it the same philosophy?
Well, I think certainly a varied diet, getting the nutrients, minerals they need, which very much applies to cats as well. I mean, cats really should eat meat, but that's another story. They're not really supposed to be on vegan diets, but they're
supposed to be on a vegan diet or not?
Not.
Okay.
No,
so they're meat eaters, right? So if you're a vegan and have pets, you should feed them meat.
Well, the thing is that there was something recently in the paper where one vet said no, a vegan diet's okay, and the other ones, other vets say that's not really true, because they won't get the they are basically carnivores. They get certain minerals from meat. But I used to feed my cat prawns, which was the worst thing I could have fed him, because it was too rich for his little stomach.
Oh,
So
I
I would back to the lady. Yes, really, it's a sensible, balanced diet, same for humans, and cut down on the treats.
Cut down on the trees. Lilette, thank you for that. Tell us, what do you feed your new Cocker Spaniel puppy, or how much do you not feed? Lilette, she's come back. Our puppy only gets fresh food that we do in batches and freeze, but not sure if rice can be added as a filler. Thank you for Lilette. And given that you're, all of that you're doing, I'm not sure if I believe your inner cat, but you say that your inner cat is lazy. So let's, anybody else can tell us what their inner cat might be. And also, please, now that you're getting to know Jill, guess what her favorite dog is, her favorite type of dog, or maybe she doesn't have types of dog, maybe it's the individual character, but we will find out all that at the end. We have Jennifer asks, we're turning into nutrition, but we'll do this. What is the best food for an elderly dog that has been through a lot of trauma? A street dog in Romania.
Street dog in Romania. I think, in a way, if the animal's gone through so much trauma, it depends how his or her digestive system is working. If they haven't eaten enough, perhaps for a while, to give them too much in one go would possibly not be a good thing. But I think actually giving them something nutritional, if that's possible, under the circumstances, would be the safest thing, and a small amount, because it might be slightly overwhelming for them. So
a little bit like an old person,
yes,
elderly person.
Yes,
small amounts with good quality.
And often, yes, I would think. It's a bit like if we've been ill, we don't want to then have a full-blown 3-course meal, I suppose. It's just something that would be easily digested. Certainly, it's a bit trial and error, because it also depends very much on the animal, how they so
yes, no, that's that and oh, we're on to cats now, from Gillian James. What to do when your cat keeps coming for you for treats and pecks you on your legs? Mine has meat and cat biscuits, not vegan, and cats need taurine. Explain all that to us, Jill. Yeah.
Well, no, these are the certain, yes, it's definitely very important for them to have taurine. But if it nips you and things, it could be that it's actually he or her is associating food with attention, so coming for a lot of rewards. So it's a tricky one, because you don't want the animal to actually just become addicted and then get to because it's very dangerous for cats as well to be overweight. So if you can cut down much, and maybe distract the cat with play, because I found I did actually look after this cat once, which was constantly asking for food, and it did help to start playing, and making food, making it almost a game, that they instead of coming to you, if you put it somewhere and make a little trail around the house, if you've got time for that, and then they'll associate it with play. And
of course, communicating with a cat is different to communicating with a dog, isn't it?
Yes. Well, with cats, we know how stubborn they can be, and they often set the pace. So with dogs, they might be, dogging your every move, whereas cats can just disappear when they're fed up with you. So, but having said that, every animal is an individual. So, and they all have their own little idiosyncrasies. So and the behaviour is very much, their own behaviour. So
Yes.
I always think I mustn't generalise about animals because they will do their own thing.
Well, I think that's a very healthy outlook. Lilette asks, and you're not allowed to answer this yet, has Jill got a golden retriever? And as we talk about this more and you get to know Jill more, guess what you think her favorite dog is, or cat. You can put a cat in if you want. And just to fill you in a little bit about what this guess is about, you got a degree in politics. You became a researcher in the House of Commons. Was that for any political party, or did you just become a researcher?
Oh, I don't know. If I say political party, people might turn off.
They might. We might lose our whole audience.
Yes.
Mightn't we? So you needn't answer that.
No, I'll stay politically neutral on that one. But I didn't manage it for too long. I then went on the House magazine. But actually, I am planning to try and sell an article on how because so many MPs and members of the Lords as well who either have a cat or a dog, and I was wondering what kind of animal they have, or they might have a ferret or whatever they have. Does that dictate which political party they join?
Oh my goodness!
So
that was going to be fascinating. So have you got any little ideas you can tell us? So if somebody has Doberman Pinschers and Alsatians, which party would they be in?
Well, that could be probably, I'm just joking here, really. It could be the Scottish nationalists can be sometimes quite a bit aggressive. But I know that I think it was when they were in the recent leadership thing, when Penny Mordaunt's got, is it 2 or 3 Bengal cats, and obviously the Prime Minister at the moment has got is it chocolate Labrador? And
yes,
I mean, I don't know. What I wanted to do was actually talk to the MPs and say, so why are you a cat person? Why are you a dog one? And actually get them to tell their own story. But the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, seems to be into cats. He's got a cat called Atlee in the Speaker's house, and so he names them after previous, well, in this case, Labour politicians. So they,
and of course there's the famous Downing Street cat, isn't there?
Yes, Larry.
That's had so many different prime ministers in so many months.
Yes, exactly. It's got its own Twitter feed and everything. So quite a place.
So might you be able to find out the inner cat of our political system from this and reveal it to us, and then settle everything down a bit?
I will. And yes, just well, cats are more, they're generally calmer, aren't they? So we need a bit of calm.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I will do that.
I think Gillian James says, thank you. Georgie loves to play. This is the cat that was sort of pecking at legs. Georgie loves to play, and he is overweight, I think, due to cat treats. So yes, cut down on the cat treats. And I was about to get onto this, Gillian, so thank you for the prompt. After a while or something, you were on the House magazine. Then you went to BBC Radio, and you produced and presented travel programs for Radio 4 and 5 Live. And your first book, apart from Essential Guide to Arthritis, was Hidden Suffolk. And Gillian would like to know a little bit more about Hidden Suffolk.
Oh, well, I do. It's here somewhere. But it was the, yes, no, it's disappeared. Oh, no, it hasn't. This one.
Oh.
Yes, so that was because I moved there, and it's the most beautiful county. I still believe that, even though I don't live there anymore. But I actually decided I wanted to write about my adopted new county, and by stroke of luck, this publisher called Countryside Books was looking for somebody to cover Suffolk. They had somebody doing Norfolk and Cambridgeshire and everything. So I went around investigating the county with my 2 young nieces at the time, and they were very, very good note takers. And this lady did some lovely line drawings. She's very gifted. And so I just went round to the hidden bits, as the name suggests, and it was almost like a labor of love. I just thought it was
well, I was born and raised in Suffolk, and I still have a place there, so it's very close to my heart. So we're not going to take the whole of the show up on Suffolk, which we could easily do, but I want you to tell Gillian and our wonderful audience, give us a hidden secret of Suffolk, a place that you discovered that nobody else knows.
Oh my goodness. Well, I found places within places. And I hope I'm not getting this wrong, because I wrote this book a long time ago.
So I'll correct you if you're wrong.
I think it was Long Melford, where there's a
yes.
The church, a lovely dedication to Alice.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Thing like that. And there was some lovely tales of intrigue and crime, and so I actually highlighted those. And I think I would say it's very easy to go to hidden Suffolk in a way, because you just go off the beaten track a bit. That's not to say that Bury St Edmunds and the big places aren't lovely. They are. Yeah. But it's the little places, and something like Sternfield.
That was where I was born. That's where I was brought up, in Sternfield.
Ah, well, there you go. And the associations with Charles Dickens and Miss Havisham. Oh no, that isn't there. Which one's that one? But there was. You see, I think sometimes without even having to have a specific tale against their names, those villages, you wander around and you get your own impression of how they are.
And there's the sunken town of Dunwich as well, which is and all along that coastline. I heard that because I was Sternfield is near Aldborough, and that in the 17th century the French actually invaded and took Aldborough, but at the time there were no roads from Aldborough to anywhere else. There were just sort of smugglers' tracks. And the Suffolk people, being Suffolk people, they're quite sort of dour, actually, and insular, just ignored the French completely. They wouldn't sell them any food. They wouldn't talk to them. They wouldn't do anything. So they just packed up and went home. So there's nothing for them to do. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. Gillian says, my grandfather is from Suffolk, wished to explore it more, and is a lovely, lovely county. That's it, hidden Suffolk, which I haven't got in the chat, but if you go to Jill on Amazon, and we've got the links to the other books, Hidden Suffolk does come up. And as Jill was telling those stories about going around Suffolk, what dog did you take with you on that trip? Did you have a dog with you there?
We didn't. I used to, if this isn't too glib, but I used to take somebody's dog, and I used to call it, and his name was Zuma. He sadly had terrible arthritis, as it turns out, and it was owned by the landlord of a pub in Snape in Suffolk.
The Plough and Sale, or the Crown, or the Golden
Crown,
Key?
Actually, the Crown.
The Crown. Okay.
And Zuma had a brother called Monty, but Monty didn't sadly make it. But so Zuma used to come and live with us for weeks at a time when they went on holiday. And he was the most wonderful dog. He was a combination of an Alsatian and a Rottweiler. And
oh my God,
the best temperament ever. And you could go for a walk with him, and he'd run, through the reeds, have a lovely time, look back to check you were still around, and then off again. But so he became my best sort of crossbreed, really. And
an Alsatian and a Rottweiler. Wasn't that the description I plucked out of the air when I said, what political party would an Alsatian and a Rottweiler?
Yes, I think they could both identify with that, couldn't it? But I did at the he inspired me to write a piece for one of the newspapers. I don't know if, I can't remember if he actually published in it. And it was called almost like the timeshare dog. I felt the same emotional commitment to him, but I couldn't own him. But we had chunks of time when he was just with us. And so he was my favorite, because he had the sort of the right sort of temperament. Actually, he wasn't an Alsatian, sorry, it's a collie and Rottweiler cross.
A collie and a Rottweiler. Oh,
yeah,
okay, that's not quite such a harsh mix.
No, not such a harsh thing. So it was the collie in that he was always rounding us up if we disappeared, almost. Yeah, like some sheep. But he was lovely, and I still think of him now. And he's been dead for a long time, but he was an absolute joy.
Oh, that's great. So after that, we need some more guesses from you all of what sort of dog is Jill's favorite dog. And the inner cat, we've had one inner cat thing of being lazy. And Gillian James says, my ancestors from the Aldborough area, they ran a pub which fell into the sea due to the floods. Gillian, that must have been the, this is Gillian that's writing in, not you, Jill. Yeah. This must have been the Aldborough 1952 floods when they built the wall there. Yes. And of course, you mentioned Snape, didn't you? And that's the Benjamin Britten, Peter Grimes, the great opera. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Goodness. That is a great place to have a dog, because plenty of beach swimming and all of that sort of thing they can do. But Jennifer guesses that your favorite dog is a sausage dog, but we're not going to answer that question yet. And also the inner cat. Yeah, nobody quite knows what an inner cat is yet, but you can guess you can tell us what you think yours is and what Jill's is. And we'll tell you how you used your inner cat to get onto the show today. Let's move on to your second book on the keeping your pets, your dogs, healthy and happy life. You wrote one on epilepsy. Epilepsy. So firstly, tell us, what is epilepsy?
Well, epilepsy is it's really when you'll see your animal sadly start fitting. That's obviously, if an animal has just the odd fit, it's not strictly speaking epilepsy, but it's when it's consistent. It would be a diagnosis of epilepsy, and it's a very tough call for dogs when they suffer from that, and also obviously for the owners, it's so difficult for them to watch their animal fit, and they want to intervene and help, but it's really better to just let the animal go through that particular fit. But it's very hard to treat, I think, although some animals do, dogs in this case, they do actually get it better with the help of medication, which is a lot of phenobarbital and things like that. But the is that they have side effects. So, and there's a lot of epilepsy is actually it's not really a cause that we can really find out why that happens, really. So it can be because the breed of the dog, it can be a result of affected by toxins or Lyme disease. So it's quite a difficult one. And when they can't actually find a cause, it's actually called idiopathic epilepsy, which a lot of animals really come under that category. So, but it's been called an electrical storm in the brain, and that's what happens. Okay. It just goes
just like that, and you have your fit.
Exactly.
The subtitle of your book is to lead a full and happy life. Yes. So your pet, your beloved pet, has been diagnosed with epilepsy. how do you give the pet and the family the life that it deserves?
Well, I think a lot as that some owners would obviously say, and I actually totally agree with it, that the animal is prepared to get going and go on being a normal dog. So to treat them with cotton wool is probably not the right thing, because they will still want to lead their life as a normal dog. So I think the whole approach is probably, if you can go with this approach, is to give the animal as much warmth and love and all the rest of it, but actually to not make the animal feel as though its life is over. So with veterinary treatment, again, with all these wonderful alternative therapies, that will help. And also just to make sure that they still have a good diet and live their lives to the full. So if you take a holistic approach to this particular condition, then it could well reap lots of rewards. And there are cases in the book, again, where the owners have been very kind to share their stories, and they have taken things into their own hands. And they might say, well, I didn't want to give my Dachshund or my Border Collie, because those two breeds actually are quite affected with epilepsy, because it's known to come through the breed, that they might reduce the amount of pills they give their animal, and then they find it has still been okay. But obviously that's in their hands. That's not something that anybody else can advocate. But if they talk to their vet and the vet really slightly hands it over to the owner as to the approach, but generally speaking, the animals do have to get treatment to reduce the amount of epilepsy.
So just what are the breeds that are most affected by this?
Yeah, it's well, quite a few of well, as I say, Border Collies, Dachshunds, Dalmatians can get it. Beagles are very susceptible to it, but again, not every beagle. It's just that can come through the line. But also any animal, any dog could get epilepsy in theory, because they might have had a terrible reaction sometimes to a vaccine, or, as I say, to toxins. So it's not just those breeds, but they are known to be more susceptible.
And is it common? I mean, amongst all the dogs, the pet dogs are in Britain, is it 10%, 1%?
Well,
100%?
It's about 1 in 20.
Oh, that's quite common, isn't it? Yes.
It is quite common, actually. Yeah. And I didn't realize.
Do you know what it is in humans?
No, I don't know what it is in humans.
I was just wondering, because it is 1 in 20 is quite a lot.
Yes, it is quite a lot. And maybe sometimes they're not diagnosed as being epileptic, because it, as I say, it might not be lots and lots of fits all the time. So, and the younger the dog, and if they start fitting, then the vet will say it is or it isn't, strictly speaking, epilepsy. But they will be, it's usually epilepsy to do with other factors when they're under about 5. And then older dogs, it can often be the result of a brain tumor. So that's when they know. Under 5, it's usually either without a known cause or with a reaction to something. But otherwise, the older ones, it's sadly, it's the pressure from the brain tumor. So
okay, I mean,
that's how
you chose to write about dogs with epilepsy and arthritis. Why did you choose those two conditions, or is it that these are the most common?
Well, the arthritis one, the dog and cat version, was because I'd written a human arthritis one, and the teacher I worked with said, well, done the human bit, tick, So do the dog one. And so that's how that arrived. And then the cat one. Epilepsy, it was because some owners had approached me and said, have you ever considered doing something on epilepsy? And I've been talking to people at the Animal Health Trust, which was a wonderful trust that's based in Suffolk, that sadly closed down during the pandemic, but they were doing fantastic work. And I hope to goodness they managed to form back a bit, because it's been such a loss that they've closed down. But they were looking into DNA tests and doing a lot of medical research, and actually to get a clearer picture of epilepsy, what the causes are. Is it down to heredity? Is it specific breeds? So I worked with them. So that was, but it was prompted by owners.
Right.
I thought about doing the cat version of epilepsy.
Well, I was going to say you've done presumably cats that we've talked about, and we're going to get back to, have epilepsy and have arthritis.
Yes, yes, but I think cats aren't known to be so affected by epilepsy as dogs, but it could be that they're very good at disguising any problems they have, and they adapt their behavior, and it might be out of sight of owners. So, but
right, because cats are more insular and self-contained.
Well, they're just very clever to not actually convey what's really going on. They're very good. They're very good at bits and smoke and mirrors and daggers and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
Jennifer says Monty Don's dog had a massive fit and sadly died. And Patricia, thank you. She's just Googled, I think you're talking about human beings here. 1 in 26 people will develop epilepsy. 1 in 26. And this is this in the brain, is it, that creates it? That is
a storm in the brain. Yes, it's
a storm in the brain.
Yes, electrical storm. And you think, well, it's I've never met anybody who has epilepsy, and I've never seen an animal have a fit, but I think it is very terrifying for people because they want to get involved, and dogs, when they do have a fit, they're very, very hungry afterwards because they've exhausted themselves.
Right. Yes. So we have some. We have a golden retriever. This is your favorite dog. We've got several minutes before we get the answer. There's a sausage dog, a cockapoodle we've had. So keep them coming. And Gillian says that yes, it was the 1950s flood, but what was the pub, Gillian, that fell into the sea? Because we both know, Jill and I both know Aldborough, so tell us. And there are others here that, but not you. There's another, the Gillian who's asking the questions knows the name of the pub that fell into the sea. So let us know that. But now let's move on to cats. I mean, we've talked about them a fair bit because the Downing Street cat and the political cats that that you're going to do. But this phrase, "in a cat," which has captured my imagination. Go into it a little bit more.
Well, what inspired me was that I thought if we did actually adopt their ways, and because they seem to be, as we've covered, so canny, and they really do manage to get pretty much what they want. And then I thought, it's almost putting aside some of the human pitfalls and the traps we set ourselves, and actually say, I'm going to release this inner cat because I'm going to start getting calmer, and actually not worrying about what people think, because cats don't really care what other people think of them, I imagine. I obviously can't get inside their head. But and then start adopting a much more, I'm not going to be selfish and push people aside, but I'm actually going to set life on my terms, which is all a grand idea. But I think that's why, if you watch what cats do, and if you see how they can pretty much achieve what they want, they have their goals, it's all very subtle. But instead of showing everything, every emotion, cats just carry on in their own sweet way, and they protect their image.
They're not aggressive generally, are they? Although
no.
That Tom and Jerry cartoon, they are aggressive, aren't they?
Well, that's hammed up a bit, isn't it? But if they're aggressive, which they can be if you touch them somewhere that's painful.
Yes.
Be a reason why they do it. And don't generally, thank goodness, they don't kill or attack. So
and what would you say is an alley cat? Because and there were cartoons about that, but when you describe somebody as being like an alley cat or a tomcat, there's lots of, the more I think of it, the more you get these phrases. What is an alley cat and what is a tomcat?
Well, an alley cat and tomcat, I suppose they're the ones who don't really worry as much about their image. And I've seen cats where they can seem to be completely bonkers, and if they feel in the mood. So an alley cat would be, I imagine, just a little bit more offbeat.
Streetwise, I mean,
streetwise. I think they're all streetwise. As I just think they're so savvy. They're sort of born with a kind of savvy gene, and they've been around for 10,000 years that we know about, and worshipped in Egypt, etc. So they're not going to let their guard down. I think even though they might look a bit alley-catty and obviously forgetting the rules of being a cat, but there is a feline policy that they adopt, I think, at birth, and they don't even realize they're doing it. But this is my brand. I'm not going to look a fool to anyone. So sometimes they might forget that. Some are perhaps a little bit mad.
Gillian James, no problem, Gillian, at all about that. I can't remember it either, but we will, if either Jill Carrick or Gillian James, we remembers this disappeared pub, I'll check it out next time I'm down there. We will discuss it between ourselves. Suri has a really interesting question here, because it's about the wild cats, the bigger cats, the lions, the jaguars, the tigers. These are all cats, aren't they? They've got cat genes, and they're very focused like cats, but they're a little aggressive.
Well, I think the only thing that would make any animal, and among the big cats too, is fear, isn't it? And lack of food. And there's still so many, I saw some cats, there was a whole kind of pride of lions that actually came running over to meet the man who helped raise them. And it was on social media somewhere, but the whole thing is those lions might have attacked another human if they thought the human had bad thoughts about them. But it shows that they can be as loving and placid as any cat and little cats if they're not fearful of anything. So I think that's the only thing that makes people fearful as well. Aggressive.
So fear leads to aggression in cats, in dogs as well, or is a Doberman naturally aggressive?
Well, I think they get a bit of a bad press. It's a bit like staffies. People say, oh, they're dangerous. Well, they're not. It's not the breed itself. It's often how they've been brought up. Have they been abused? And if a dog's been abused, they might actually think the human is a threat. So
Yes.
that's why, again, it's a case by case basis, and every animal
Yes.
be judged on its own merit, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I know in the States, in places like Montana and they have lion cats who are sort of big. They're not lions, but they're big cats, and they're quite snarly.
Yeah.
And this all goes through. And I guess when dogs go through, to wolves and other sort of categories like that, don't they?
Yes. No, yeah, they do, and it's because humans, I suppose, we all recall some of our memories and think, did that human or do that to us? Would they do it again? And so we all have a bank of memories that we might work on.
Yes. Sorry, that is a great question. Let us know your one-line thoughts about the wildcats, the jaguars. How close are they to the, that beautiful Burmese cat that's sitting on your lap? And now I'm going to ask you this because Patricia, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I've interrupted myself. It was in Slaughton. And it was called the Three Mariners, and Slaughton was taken over by the floods. Yes. And for those that don't know Albury, you have the sea sort of here, then you have a narrow strip of land, which is, where am I on there? And then you have the river. So it's an easily floodable area, and it's very beautiful with sort of marshes and things. But thank you, Patricia, for that.
Yes,
Sorry, let us know your thoughts about the wildcats and the jaguars. Not the dog, but what is your favorite cat breed, Jill?
I would say I love them all, of course, but I like Maine Coons. They're beautiful, and from mainly North America, and they look absolutely stunning, and they're big, and apparently they've got lovely natures as a rule, so I quite like those. But I think I've got to support Moggies United, because they are my cat was a black cat, and people always say things like they're not interesting, and they don't get homed, unfortunately. And I think that's very unfair, because they're lovely, and my cat Sweetie was so placid and sweet, and so yeah.
When you sort of get home after a tough day work or a traffic jam or something dreadful, and a cat sort of jumps off the shelf to you, what do you feel?
That never happened to me, actually.
Or what the similar experience?
Yeah, similar experience. Well, it's really nice that they know when you're coming back, even if you might be half a mile down the road. They seem to know that. And yes, their little meows. And I actually have to admit, I used to stay up till 1 a.m. until the cat came home, which was a bit sad. But sometimes I just and he'd come home and start meowing and just saying, I'm back. We all can be calm now, I'm here. So
and life.
No, I didn't.
Well, give us. I'm going to go on to tell people what's coming up very shortly, but give us a few seconds. Just sum up on arthritis, epilepsy, the health of cats and dogs or whatever. Give us a top line of how best to look after your pets and give them a happy and healthier life. I
think definitely treat them as individuals, adopt a holistic approach to their health, and exercise, good diet, make sure that they're as happy as can be, and then they should respond absolutely as your best pal. And we remember that the cats and dogs are sort of sentinels about how we live our lives, and everything we develop in terms of disease and conditions get them too. So we've got to work together. And I know there's quite a lot of research where anything we're producing for animals can be used on humans with adaptions and vice versa. So we're all in this together.
Oh, we're all in it together. That's that political phrase that you got from the House of Commons, isn't it? Lilette Butler says, growing up, we always had mongrels. As my father said, inbreeding is dangerous. I must say they were all the most loving and loyal pets. And Suri, who asked the question about the jaguars and the bigger cats, we can all take lessons from cats. I think this is what you're saying, Jill. They have such a cool demeanor and control over their minds, and that they are always in the present moment. I like that, always in the present moment. Stay with us. Coming up, we have December the 8th. Lucinda is with Catherine May talking about her hybrid memoir, Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times, a New York Times and Sunday Times bestseller, adapted for BBC's Radio 4 Book of the Week. What exactly is wintering? I did ask Jill that before we came on, and she doesn't know either. So sign in and find out. December the 9th, Caroline Crampton is with Lucinda talking about The Way to the Sea, the forgotten histories of the Thames Estuary. Caroline also does a podcast on crime fiction called She Done It, which I love. December the 13th, I have a very special Purpose, Passion and Grit with Leonid Volkov. He is the best friend and chief of staff to Russia's top jail dissident Alexei Navalny. If you want to get a glimpse and a future of Russia after Ukraine or even now, find out how we got to where we are. Join us for this very special Purpose, Passion and Grit. And our book of the month is Truman Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's. There we go, a classic with a legendary movie starring Audrey Hepburn. It's a very thin read, see, you can get through it in an afternoon and watch the movie, and we're going to discuss it on December the 30th. I did say yesterday, New Year's Eve. It is December the 30th. We're going to be doing this. Jill, there's a cat in it. Yeah, I just remember.
Yes,
Holly Golightly
yes.
has a cat.
And it doesn't have a name, does it?
No.
It's just called Cat. But
yes.
That's why I keep watching that film, because it's lovely, and the cat doesn't obviously say anything long, but it's George Peppard in it as well, isn't it? With Audrey Hepburn.
It's George Peppard and Audrey Hepburn, and the book is slightly different, and we're going to be discussing how the book is different. But I think this is right. Is the cat is a stray. She looks after it in an affectionate but sort of random way, and she will give the cat a name when she has got a sort of settled life herself.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy, isn't it?
I mean, I think the names we give our animals are very interesting, and the animal has to grow into it. Actually,
the animal has to grow into the thing. Now we've got a couple of minutes left. We have two things to.
Yes, my favorite.
We have. I've got to go back. We have a Dachshund, a Retriever, and something else that and a Cockapoodle were our contributions. What is your favorite type of dog? And a mongrel, of course, we had as well.
Yes.
What is your favorite type of dog?
When I was 4 years old, I did my first walk with a dog, and he was a golden retriever, and actually I can't remember his name, but I was only 4 years old, and my parents were having a little bit of a worry that I'd fallen off a cliff. But he was the most lovely animal. So a lovely golden retriever that actually got me on this path to loving animals.
Well, Lilette Butler got that exactly. So let's give her a round of applause, because not often with our random guesses do we get a direct winner. Lilette Butler, thank you very much.
Like a bottle of champagne.
A bottle of champagne. Okay, that's we'll work that through the Goldster system, and we have 30 seconds left. Give me 2 words of what your inner cat is.
It's a lovely ginger cat with a white bib.
A ginger cat is your inner cat. This is what you bring out.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. And I will dye my hair to match the ginger bits. And that's my white bib. Yes, it's the cat that I'm spending a lot of time with, called Chili, who's inspired my next book. But he's a beautiful, beautiful cat. And Moggy.
we're looking forward to your next book called In a Cat. I think it's going to be a bestseller. I can see the cover now.
It's called Cat Fishing. Yes. Thank you
but
very much.
Times Wing Chariot has approached. If I was a cat, I'd ignore it, but I can't because the hour has come. Thank you for such a fantastically great conversation. Gillian James is very enjoyable and informative. Until next week with Lucinda and Wintering, which we still don't know what it is, stay curious, stay involved, stay reading, stay connected, and of course, stay Goldster. Thank you, Jill Carrick, for a really great In a Cat conversation about our pets and the warmth of our community. Thank you, Jill. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.